It's 5 p.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up within the hour. U.S. President Joe Biden and former Vice President Kamala Harris condemned new assassination attempts on former President Donald Trump. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and UK Prime Minister pledge cooperation on migration and security. Plus, the death toll continues to rise across Central and Eastern Europe, with worse flooding in decades. You're watching The World Today. And we're beginning with the latest in another assassination attempt on the life of the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. Now, on Sunday, a man was spotted aiming an AK-47 rifle, a type rifle, at Trump West Palm Beach Golf Resort, while concealed in shrubbery about 400 to 500 yards away from the politician when he was spotted by Secret Service agents who opened fire as he fled the scene. He was later stopped in a Nissan SUV by police and taken into custody in a neighboring county. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw confirmed the suspect had been detained and the suspect did not fire any shots on the golf course of the former president. Trump is expected to meet later with the acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe. Earlier today, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke to reporters briefly for the first time since the incident happened, saying the Secret Service needs more help. 58-year-old Ryan Wesley, the suspect, is likely to appear in court in the coming hours and is expected to face federal charges. Let's take a look now at what happened early this morning, just hours after the incident on the Trump golf course in Florida. There were police vehicles surrounding the area. As we can see there, an increased amount of security around the Florida home of the former president. President Trump was said to have been in good spirits right after the incident. Trump is the Republican Party's nominee for the upcoming presidential election in the United States. Sunday's event will be the second attempt on his life in months. Now, back in July, Trump survived an assassination attempt while speaking at an open-air campaign rally near Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump was shot and wounded in his upper right ear by Thomas Crooks, a 20-year-old man from Bethel Park, also in Pennsylvania, who fired 8 rounds from an AR-15 style rifle from the roof of a nearby building. Crooks also killed 1 audience member and critically injured 2 others. He was subsequently shot and killed by the United States Secret Service counter-sniper team. And we have here footage from President Joe Biden's encounter with reporters earlier today. Right before he boarded the Marine One helicopter, the president thanked God that the former president is okay. He was asked, though, about government officials needing more security personnel and what he thought would be the appropriate adjustment towards security for these officials. Let's take a listen.
I think they thank God the president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they, in fact, need more services. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
Are you concerned more money or they need more personnel? They need more money? What kind of help do you say?
I think we need some more personnel. I think they may decide whether they need more personnel or not.
Well, current Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris released a statement following yesterday's event, condemning the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. She said she was deeply disturbed by the possible assassination attempt on the former president and condemned political violence. She was also thankful that the former president is safe. She then commended the Secret Service and their law enforcement partners for their vigilance. We have Channel Television's Washington correspondent Maria Bird joining us. She's been monitoring events in Florida. Maria, thankfully, there were no shots fired yesterday at the former president, but this could have been a whole other conversation we'll be having today. I thought the Secret Service identified its mistakes with the last attempt on the former president's life in Pennsylvania. Why was there a vacuum this time round?
Yes, I think that is the greater question here. I mean, we have seen this is the second time in just a few weeks that the former president his life has potentially been at risk. And we know that this is a very contentious election season, but we have never seen this type of attempted assassination on a former president this many times, and also one that's obviously running for election in this upcoming cycle. The Secret Service, as you heard the president state, potentially needs additional individuals to serve in this capacity. There could be a lack of appropriate personnel that are securing the former president. I think what the full report is going to have to detail, and Congress is going to likely be requesting this, is a number of individuals, the skill level of the individuals, and the way in which they're planned securing him during these type of open, large events. And so there's going to be additional requirements that's going to come out of this that's going to require that a full plan and a full understanding of the skill set of the individuals that are assigned to the former president, what they are. And additionally, this is going to require that they understand clearly how the vice president is also being secured, because this does leave a question mark, and that is she is also very vulnerable as she's out on the campaign trail in very large venues.
This was the same reason the former head of Secret Service, Kimberly Sheetal, resigned. What is their excuse this time for not providing Trump with adequate security?
As you said, this is a real question for, what is the reason? We've seen this before. There was personnel changes as a result of the last attempted assassination. And so that is, I think, going to be key and critical. Is it a change within personnel? Or is a true gap in the way in which he's being secured? There's also going to be additional investigations done to see if there's something going on further that's not understood, because of the fact that this is so unprecedented with the number of attempts that have obviously gone forth. We also know the individual that was brought forth. He did not resist arrest. They found him very shortly after the actual attempted assassination occurred. Did not have a long record in Florida. They have found a record in North Carolina. So I think the fact that the court is bringing him forth for his arraignment so soon and so quickly, and we can expect that in the next few hours, if not sooner, to hear more about what has occurred. I think that is going to be critical as well, to see if there's something else that is occurring here that has not yet been pinpointed.
Yeah, it does sound like a deliberate attempt to be caught by security operatives. The fact that he hadn't gone very far before they caught up with him and then arrested him. And thankfully, there have been no attempts on President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. But I'm sure that there are concerns that, some lone wolves could copy this situation with the former president.
That's exactly correct. I think that is where the concern is at this time, especially for the president, of course, as well, but especially for the vice president, as she is on the campaign trail. So she's a little bit more exposed than traditionally she would be in her vice presidency role. And potentially the question also is, are the boundaries around these facilities and the campaign trail as secure and being scouted in enough time before the events occur? And I think that's going to, because we have seen a great deal of exposure of both candidates over the last few months as to how they've been out on the campaign trails and how they've been really with the people and with those who they are calling to be their voting base. And so we know that that's very traditional for the former president. He was always one, even during his last campaigning cycle, that he would be very much on the front lines campaigning and very much with his voter base. And so that does provide an extensive level of exposure, and also does require the Secret Service and the security measures to be that much more heightened, and additionally potentially having to use additional tactics and strategies to secure those areas.
Yes, and the former president was said to have been in good spirits yesterday after the incident. A number of his affiliates did say that he was fine. He was surprisingly in good spirits. I think his son said he was in good spirits. Lindsey Graham also said he was in good spirits, surprisingly, for someone who had had an attempt on his life. Now, the event in July, he was shaken up a bit, though. How does this incident now impact on his campaign for president?
I think it impacts somewhat, but I think that the former president has continued to have a message of being resolute, being able to combat. You know, he has the "we will continue to fight," and so I think this actually spurs him to continue his messaging around this is why it's so important for his campaign to be successful. And so I think he will use this in a way in which to continue to build up his base and also to encourage his base to get out to vote. So it will definitely, obviously, it's a concerning measure, probably more concerning, to be quite honest, for his campaign and his security detail as they're trying to find ways to secure him. I think that he's very aware of some of the challenges that exist. I'm sure the first time was very potentially concerning for him this time as well. But I think that his basic message, as we saw him during that first incident, raising his fist shortly after the assassination attempt, just shows where he is mentally as far as what he really believes in, and that he is committed to potentially winning this election.
I know that many Republicans had thought the last attempt was a conspiracy on the former president. The investigation is still ongoing as to how Thomas Cook got unhindered access to the vantage position from where he fired his AR-15 style rifle. Are those conspiracy theories swirling around now?
There will definitely be, we will definitely hear people coming out stating, because if you look at where the rifle was, if you look at kind of the positioning, the question would be, why was there no security detail in that area? Why was there that much of an open space without a security? You would think that there would have been security around the entire perimeter of the location. Thinking about how open a golf course community is, and thinking about the landscape there in West Palm Beach, Florida. And so that is going to definitely be called to question by Republicans. And to be quite honest, it'll be called to question throughout the investigation. Because if you kind of see the images of where the rifle was held, you can clearly see that this was a clear blind spot, but most importantly, it was an open area that was in direct line for where the president was holding his event.
I'm interested to know, what Democrats think of what has happened. And I know that, they would receive some backlash for what has happened as well. Some Republicans and those who are supporters of the former president probably think that, some of these attacks are motivated by some hate from the Democrats, from government officials. And I know I'd heard conspiracy theories about that after the July 15 assassination attempt on the former president. What are senior members of the Democratic Party making of what happened last night? We already heard the president. He was happy that the former president was fine. The vice president condemned political violence. What about the other Democratic leaders, Democratic Party leaders? What do they make of what has happened?
Well, if you think about where the Democratic Party as a whole sits as it relates to gun reform, there is a clear distinction between the right to bear arms between the Democratic and Republican Party. Most Democrats are very great supporters of being able to have bans on certain type of rifles, specifically AR-57s and other rifles. And to be honest, some even go as far as a full rifle and gun ban in the United States. So when you think about the position of where Democrats sit as it relates to guns usage in the U.S., this is not something that they would be in support of, or believing that this type of gun violence is something that they would potentially see as within the leadership as a way to go. And so I think that the Democrats are so far on the other side as it relates to that. Now, whether the Democratic base and those supporters in the Democratic Party, that's another question as to where they sit as far as this type of hate crime and this attempted assassination. But for those in leadership, they are very far from believing that any type of use of rifles is within what they would believe, regardless of where they sit. And if you hear what Democrats and Republicans are saying about this election cycle, they are really calling for peace and calm. They're really calling for this to be one that allows democracy to win and democracy to continue to use as the model of democracy. And so these type of occurrences really do set back the democratic process in the United States.
Indeed, they could set back democratic processes anywhere else. Assassination attempts, really strong issues and need to be addressed head on. Maria, thanks again for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Let's go across the pond now to the UK, where Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer praised cross-border cooperation to tackle people smuggling gangs on a trip to Rome for talks with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, part of a reset in ties with the rest of Europe. Accompanied by Italian Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi, Mr. Starmer visited the National Coordination Center for Migration to discuss Italy's approach to the issue, which has seen a 60% drop in irregular arrivals by sea. Starmer's put reviewing ties with European Union leaders at the top of his diplomatic agenda since winning an election in July. Today's visit to Rome follows trips to Berlin, Paris and Dublin. Starmer has scrapped the previous government's contentious plans to deport asylum seekers who arrive in small boats to Rwanda, but has not ruled out arrangements that would see asylum claims processed offshore, similar to an agreement Italy has struck with Albania.
I was very worried by the news about this attempt. Looks like an assassination attempt. Very, very worried about it. Obviously, there's now an investigation going on, so I won't say much more about the details, but I think it is really important that we're all very, very clear that violence has no part to play at all in any political process. So deeply troubled, let the investigation take its place, but absolute clarity. Violence, no place in political discussion at all, anywhere. I'm here to have discussions here at this coordination centre and with the Prime Minister about how we deal with unlawful migration. And here there's been some quite dramatic reductions, so I want to understand how that came about. It looks as though that's down to the upstream work that's being done in some of the countries where people are coming from. I've long believed, by the way, that prevention and stopping people travelling in the first place is one of the best ways to deal with this particular issue. So I'm very interested to know how that upstream work went. Looking, of course, at other schemes. Looking forward to my bilateral with the Prime Minister this afternoon. But we've already got a shared intent to work together on this trade, this vile trade of pushing people across borders. Well, let me shed a little light on this. It's very important to me that the rules are followed. I've always said that. I said that before the election. I've reinforced it after the election. And that's why, shortly after the election, my team reached out for advice on what declarations should be made, so it's in accordance with the rules. They then sought out for further advice more recently, as a result of which they made the relevant declarations. But for me, it's really important that the rules are followed. That's why I was very pleased my team reached out proactively, not once but twice, because it is very important that we have transparency, very important that you and others can see that the rules are being followed.
Let's check in on the grueling weather now in Central and Eastern Europe. Residents of the German border town of Görlitz are bracing for flooding today. Residents barricading doors and entranceways with sandbags. One resident said that while everyone was affected by the situation, they were aware that the situation in the Czech Republic and in Poland was even more intense. More rivers in Central Europe burst their banks today. At least 15 people have now died from Austria to Romania in the worst flooding in at least 2 decades. Meanwhile, Hungarian authorities have braced themselves for floods. Locals and military personnel have started building sandbag dams along the Danube River. The death toll from the worst flooding Central Europe has seen in at least 2 decades has risen today. Authorities in some areas assessing the damage left by the deluge, while others prepared for the crisis to reach them. Border areas between the Czech Republic and Poland were hit hard over the weekend as heavy rain since last week and rising water levels collapsed some bridges, forcing evacuations and damaging cars and houses. As we said earlier, 15 people have died in flooding from Austria to Romania. And we were just talking about the rise in death toll from the floods in Central and Eastern Europe. One person drowned in the Czech Republic. Several people still missing over the weekend. 4 people are known to have died in Poland, although authorities say the cause of the deaths is still not known. In Austria, 2 people aged 70 and 80 died in the northeast of the country. And although conditions have stabilized in some parts of the continent, others are still bracing themselves for more disruption and danger. It's been a harrowing weekend for many in Central and Eastern Europe, following the huge amount of rainfall witnessed in the past few days, and more predicted to follow on Sunday and on Monday. Meteorologists say the weather will improve from Tuesday with much drier conditions, but say it will take many days for the floodwater to work down Europe's river catchments, meaning that for some communities, the flooding will get far worse even after the rain has stopped falling. While 7 people are now known to have died in the floods, there are still several more missing. Poland, Romania and the Czech Republic have borne the brunt of the disaster. Drone footage captured the extent of flooding in a Polish village on Sunday. Fields could be seen completely submerged under brown water, while buildings were surrounded by the flood. There was a dramatic rescue of 4 children and 2 dogs on Saturday after their family was caught in severe flooding. In a Facebook post accompanying the rescue video, crew members from the Provincial Water Rescue Center said the mission, in very difficult conditions, was completed at 1:27 a.m. local time. Cleanup began in a small county in Romania after the torrential rain, as the Secretary of State for Emergency Situations said that living containers will be made available to some displaced people until they can return home. Over in the Czech Republic, fire crews raced to protect homes from rising floodwaters as heavy rains looked set to burst the banks of more rivers. Some parts of the country are facing the worst flooding in almost 3 decades, with 250,000 homes without power due to high winds and rain. And in Germany, the river Isar burst its banks on Sunday as heavy rain continued to batter Central Europe, causing flooding in several parts of the region. While some parts of the southern German state of Bavaria saw a short break of precipitations on Sunday morning, others, such as Passau, near the Austrian border, are still anticipating rising water levels. The weather's been anything but pleasant in the Chinese city of Shanghai, which is experiencing its 13th typhoon this year. Bebinka has been wreaking havoc since making landfall around 7:30 a.m. local time, bringing about 50 millimeters of rainfall by 8 in the morning. At the time of landfall, the maximum wind speed near the eye of the storm was about 42 meters per second. Shanghai's Meteorological Observatory upgraded the yellow alert for heavy rain to an orange alert at 11 a.m., forecasting that the cumulative precipitation in most areas of the city will exceed 100 millimeters within the next 6 hours. China has a 4-tier color-coded weather warning system, with red representing the most severe warning, followed by orange, yellow and blue. Amid the heavy rainstorm, a tuned mass damper inside the Shanghai Tower, designed to keep the 632-meter skyscraper stable under severe weather conditions, was seen visibly shaken. Well, it's not been only floods ravaging around Europe. The wildfires have been a big headache this summer. Just today, Portugal asked for more firefighting planes as at least 15 blazes raged in central and northern regions, including one that burned houses on the outskirts of the Albergaria Alvila. More than 800 firefighters were battling that fire, and 3 others in the northwestern Aveiro district, where police shut motorways, including a stretch of the main highway between the capital Lisbon and Porto, and evacuated several villages. Authorities said they had deployed 8 waterbombing aircraft in the district. The government requested more aircraft from the European Commission under the EU civil protection mechanism known as RESU. And back here in Nigeria, with the Borno state government still counting the cost of the impact of the flood, which caused significant damage to the state capital, many residents are urging donors to help in their efforts to rebuild the city. Hundreds of thousands of people were affected by the flooding, which was caused by a damaged part of the Alo Dam in Konduga local government area of the state. Our environment correspondent, Ayola Kasim, in this next report looks at the impacts of heavy rainfall on the dam just outside the state.
The fisher folks in Alu community are back on the Ngada River, the river that feeds the Alu dams. Many residents depend on the river for their livelihoods, and with the water level down, they are back at work. Located about 20 kilometers from Maiduguri city center, the collapsed dam is one of two in the area, and the one that has evidently been abandoned for years. The other were not allowed to film. The earth-filled dam was overtopped after the heavy rainfall, with no solid spillway to control the passage of the surplus water over and around the dam. It is also not designed to permit uncontrolled flow of water downstream. What followed have been a disaster.
You are right, because we have problem of maintenance in the dam. We had a similar disaster 30 years ago, although the extent is not up to this one. But I believe the dam requires reconstruction.
Inadequate spillway has eroded the dam over the years. The last heavy rainfall washed off a side of the embankment, and the free flow of water still finds its way to the city. Back in the city, many are still counting their losses.
State Specialist Hospital Maiduguri. The primary medical ward has been cleared, cleaned, disinfected, and some of the rooms have been fumigated. You can see the soakaway, the sewages have been mixed with the flooded water. So we're afraid of all these waterborne diseases. So we've taken care of that, and now it's fully functional. And also the maternity, amenity ward is also functional. It has been cleaned, it has been disinfected, and where there are needs of fumigation, it has been done, and patients are there receiving services. And we are now thinking of the oxygen plant. The water is still there, it's still waterlogged, but the water level has calmed down, and we are sure some of the machines have also been submerged. So we would like to have an assessment before we talk of maybe starting oxygen production. But certainly it's one of our lifelines, especially for our premature babies, those that are oxygen dependent. Actually, we depend on the machine.
Green Concern for Development, a not-for-profit organization which works with the poor and socially excluded people in Borno State, has paused its operations.
Our items, the wash items, nutrition items, our drugs, as we took those photos, they were all spoiled, and it has all been damaged. Our warehouse there has been submerged by water already. There are some other few items that were left we couldn't carry. They were all submerged by the flood.
With the dam still in the same state and climate changing, any delay in repairs means more lives are still at risk.
Now that we used to receive increasing volume of water into the dam, coupled with climate change, there's a need for us to increase the carrying capacity of the dam. You are right. And most importantly, siltation of the riverbanks and the waterways is also one of the biggest problems that we are facing. Another biggest problem that we are facing is human factors. Human beings do use to build houses right inside waterways. We stopped them. We demolished up to about 4,000, 5,000 homes. Some years back when I took over power as the governor of Borno State. But you know, in a democratic society, although I am resilient enough, people complain that we are trying to displace them. You know what I'm saying. So people thought that government is trying to displace people, but many have seen what has happened.
While some may argue that natural disasters are unfortunately a fact of life, neglecting to protect infrastructure to help people to cope with it is not right.
Many of the people here are just trying to rebuild their lives and livelihoods after more than a decade-long insurgency. For them, this is one disaster too many. Some even fear the outbreak of waterborne diseases and feel the odds are just against them. But will the authorities do the right thing? Well, only time will tell. From Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Joining us now from Maiduguri in Borno State is founder, Advocacy for Human Value, Fatima Habib. Fatima, thanks for joining us on the program. We understand the network is challenging, but we'll just try. It must have been many long days and nights for you these past few days, trying to reach the needy on the ground. What can you tell us about the present state of things? Fatima, you do have to unmute so that we can hear you. Still can't hear Fatima. We'll move on now to an update on the situation in Ukraine, where 8 people have been wounded, one critically, in the city of Belgorod by shelling blamed on Ukrainian forces today, according to the regional governor. The governor said dozens of residential buildings sustained damages, with windows and balconies smashed, 15 cars hit. He says several towns and villages of Belgorod region came shelling today. A civilian was wounded in a Razmonye settlement. No other injuries were reported. Belgorod has come under frequent shelling and drone attacks from Ukraine in the course of what Moscow describes as its special military operation launched on February 24, 2022. It is next to the Kursk region, a large swathe of which is occupied by Ukrainian forces following a cross-border attack last month. IAEA Director Rafael Grossi today called the situation around the Kursk nuclear plant in Russia, where Ukrainian troops are making advances, serious during his speech at the IAEA General Conference. Rossi, who visited the Kursk power plant in the end of August, said that no peaceful nuclear power plant should ever be attacked, irrespective of where the nuclear power plant was situated. He also said the IAEA was present at the Russian-controlled nuclear plant in Zaporizhia, saying IAEA experts were working to inform the international community of the ongoing situation. The Zaporizhia plant, Europe's largest nuclear facility, fell to Russian troops soon after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022 and is not operating now.
The IAEA has been present at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Already 23 rotations of IAEA experts are there, contributing, working, informing the international community of what is going on. And yes, I have visited Kursk just a few days ago, where the situation is serious, saying and coming from the assumption that a nuclear power plant, a peaceful nuclear power plant, should never be attacked under any circumstances, irrespective of the place where these nuclear power plants are situated. We are at a time of unprecedented tensions and uncertainties, but of course that should not deviate us and should not make us forget the absolute importance of our work here, because our work cannot be put on hold until these tensions ease, which we always and of course hope will be the case. When it comes to, and we mentioned that, the nuclear non-proliferation regime, which is so important. We need to continue our effort. I salute the possibility and look forward to engaging with the new president of Iran and with the government of Iran in continuing in our indispensable efforts to give the credible assurances to the international community that that nuclear program is in peaceful ways, and it will continue so. There are challenges ahead, but they are not unsurmountable. And I reiterate here and now my disposition to continue our efforts.
The war in Sudan still a concern for many, as the United Nations Population Fund describes the armed conflict as one of the ugliest situations ever witnessed. According to UNFPA's Arab States Regional Director, Layla Baker, 26 million people in the war-torn country are now facing famine, and over 10 million of them have been displaced due to the ongoing war between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces.
I've been working for 30 years in the UN, serving mostly in a humanitarian capacity. And we all know that war is ugly, but this is one of the ugliest situations that I have ever witnessed in my entire life, certainly in my professional one. If I describe to you the situation on the ground where women and girls have been stripped bare of all of their basic necessities, picture thousands of women crowded into a shelter where they have no clean water, no hygiene, not enough food for their next meal, no medical care. For those women who have been displaced, and we now have over 10 million people displaced in Sudan alone after 500 devastating days of conflict and war. For those women and girls, they are looking to the international community, and in particular to UNFPA, to provide for them. Slightly over half of the population, 26 million people strong, are now facing famine. For the 600,000 pregnant women, 18,000 are likely to die as a result of that famine. They don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And in providing for that level of devastation, 26 million people is roughly the population of Australia. You can understand the pressures that we're coming under. And so it is very urgently needed, one, to provide a cessation to the hostilities so that we can put a halt to the devastation. Two, to allow for humanitarian needs and humanitarian access that's unhindered and unimpeded so that we can provide our mobile clinics, get people in to begin to rebuild the country. And then third, bring women and girls back into the fold as well, to get not see them only as recipients, but also as the agents of change for that peace that they so desperately wish for.
Nigeria remains close to the heart of the United States government, which wants to see the country succeed democratically as well as developmentally. This was highlighted in a reception at the Consul General's residence in Lagos for the new U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Richard M. Mills, Jr. In attendance were government officials, traditional rulers, fellow diplomats, members of the business community, the alumni associations, and Nigeria's creative industry. Ambassador Mills, in his address, spoke about the U.S. partnerships with Nigeria and his desire to keep growing them during his stay in the country.
A real privilege to represent the United States in Nigeria. Nigeria is a place that I've long admired from afar for its culture, for its very warm and welcoming, outgoing people, and its immense potential. I don't need to tell you that Nigeria, the largest economy on the continent, the largest democracy, an anchor state for the future of this continent, is an important partner, and the United States wants Nigeria to have a bigger role and a bigger voice in world affairs, because we share the same values, we see the world in many of the same ways. So I'm very happy to be here at the instructions of the Secretary of State and President Biden to help encourage Nigeria to step up and speak loudly, can speak frankly to us. We're friends. Friends can sometimes be frank and feisty, but always we know that Nigeria and the U.S. are in the same place and look at the world the same way. As ambassador, I can tell all of you, I am committed to strengthening our collaboration in areas old and in these new areas. And I very much look forward to hearing your ideas tonight and future visits on how we can collaborate better. And of course, let me end by saying our bonds together are not just government to government, they're people to people. And the connections between the Nigerian and the American people are deep and they're strong. I'm very proud that every year over 17,000 Nigerian students choose to study in U.S. colleges and U.S. universities. And on any given year, there are over 400 Nigerians participating in U.S. government exchange and fellowship programs. Many alumni are here tonight, and that means a great deal to me too.
China's ambassador to South Africa, Wu Peng, has highlighted the country's role as a key investor in African infrastructure. He emphasized the recently concluded 2024 Forum on China-Africa Cooperation is geared towards addressing Africa's pressing needs for sustainable development and industrialization. Ambassador Peng made these remarks during a National Press Club discussion hosted by the Chinese Embassy, focusing on the outcomes of the FOCAC summit. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Amosa, has details.
Journalists, government officials and delegates from both South Africa and China convened in Pretoria to reflect on the recently concluded 2024 Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, or FOCAC summit. Chinese ambassador to South Africa, Wu Peng, outlined the importance of FOCAC 2024 summit for the future of China-Africa relations.
The FOCAC summit in Beijing from September 4th to 6th was a great success. This gathering marked yet another important reunion for the China-Africa family after the previous summit in 2006.
Vincent Magwenya, spokesperson for President Cyril Ramaphosa, emphasized that the partnership between Africa and China must deliver meaningful and positive outcomes.
We have to very soon have demonstrable delivery that results in economic development, that results into more people being employed. We have a challenge of unemployment in South Africa. We have a challenge of a stagnant economy. So this relationship has to deliver tangible results.
What role do African countries play in shaping the agenda of FOCAC 2024, and how can they ensure their voices are heard in this partnership? I had a discussion with some students, including those from the University of Johannesburg, in attendance.
Yeah, I think we have a bigger role, by transporting like minerals, oil, so that like they can, reproduce, make new things like as they're doing now in China, where they bring new technology.
To some extent, I'm saying this because I feel like this relationship only entails leaders, and I feel like leaders are not there. They're not there to share like the struggles that the country is going through.
Well, the students from the University of Johannesburg are voicing different sentiments when it comes to the issues that has to do with FOCAC 2024. On the one hand, some are saying that FOCAC is vitally important for both Africa and China. But on the other hand, some are saying that they can only hope that FOCAC 2024 was not just a talk shop, but a progressive summit that will help the economies of both Africa and China. From Pretoria, South Africa, Innocent Samos, Channels Television News.
Meantime, China continues to build on its relations with Nigeria following the successful completion of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation held in Beijing. And this weekend, the Chinese Consulate in Lagos celebrated the founding day of the People's Republic and Nigeria's Independence Day, which both happened to fall on the same day. Interestingly, it was double celebration this weekend as China also celebrated its Mid-Autumn Festival. It is the start of another festival in China, And for those in Nigeria, there's no being left out of the Mid-Autumn Festival. Also known as the Moon Festival or Mooncake Festival, the Mid-Autumn Festival is a harvest festival held on the 15th day of the 8th month of the Chinese lunisolar calendar with a full moon at night. It usually comes up around mid-September to early October of the Gregorian calendar. The festival is characterized by lots of singing and dance presentations, reflecting on love for the motherland and appreciation for the culture. After a formal welcome from the Chinese Consul General in Lagos, Ms. Yan Yuqing, opportunities given for speeches from the Nigerian hosts.
Our gathering here today is not only a celebration of China's national day and cultural heritage, but also an opportunity to examine the evolving partnership between Nigeria and China, particularly in the area of industrial development.
Since the celebration also corresponds with commemorating the Chinese and Nigerian national days, the famous dragon dance is performed by Nigerians, reflecting the country's acceptance of Chinese culture and traditions. As is the same with other dances. Nigerians who have perfected their knowledge of Mandarin display their proficiency by conversing on stage. There is even a performance of a Nigerian, now considered a celebrity in China. My darling, will you dance for me? The Chinese Consul General Yan Yuqing later explains why it is important to share celebrations with Nigeria.
Today, I think that Nigeria and the Chinese people, yes, we can share this moon cake. It means that we share the harmony, the symphony of our mutual culture and deepen our friendship.
China considers Nigeria its #1 trading partner in Africa and looks forward to further strengthening of ties through mutual cooperation. Tito Jackson is dead. Michael Jackson's brother has died. He was aged 70. Tito Jackson's cause of death is not known. It's not been revealed officially. The former Jackson family manager, Steve Manning, has claimed that Tito suffered a cardiac arrest or a heart attack while traveling to Oklahoma from New Mexico, as per a report on Entertainment Tonight. Tito Jackson also is survived by his brothers, Jermaine, Randy, Marlon, and Jackie, his sisters, Janet, Rebby, and Latoya, and their mother, Catherine. Their father died in 2018. Tito was a third of the 9 Jackson children, which include global superstars Michael and sister Janet, part of a music-making family whose songs are still beloved today. He also made up the beloved pop group, the Jackson 5. An Estonian man walked a slackline set up on Istanbul's Bosphorus Bridge on Sunday evening. It's a 1,074-meter walk that took him from Asia all the way to Europe. Jan Roos said the car traffic beneath him on the bridge, as well as planes and helicopters above, were a distraction during the 47-minute walk on the slackline set up between the legs of the bridge, 165 meters above sea level. He says in a city environment, it's always harder to walk slacklines than somewhere in nature, adding that he tried to keep focused on his steps. He also said he had moments where he needed to rest his arms because they were getting cramped. And during that time, he was able to watch the old city and the nice view of the city of Istanbul. Also saying that it was unique that he walked from Asia to Europe on a slackline. A real daredevil attempt, I would say. Historical epic Shogun won the prestigious Best Drama Award at the Emmy Awards on Sunday, and Hack's upset favorite, The Bear, to win Best Comedy as Hollywood celebrated the best of television. Japanese actors Anna Sawai and Hiroyuki Sanada won Best Actress and Actor for Shogun, while Frederick E. Otoye won Best Director for a drama series for his work on the show. The series also picked up 14 trophies at the Creative Arts Emmys, a precursor, that recognizes guest actors and crafts such as cinematography and production design. And that's The World Today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ivani.